Hi everyone, welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark. Well, you join me on a winter's morning in January 2022. It's not actually that cold, but nevertheless, I'm going to talk to you about heated gear. Now let me explain. There's a guy who sits next to me in work called Martin who recently bought himself a nice heated vest or waistcoat. He liked it so much he decided to buy a jacket with arms on as well. And so he said to me, "Hey Mark, would you like to buy a heated vest? It'll cost you half the price it would do in the shops, and I've only worn it once. The downside is that it's got no heating control to it." Well, I couldn't turn it down. And actually, I couldn't turn it down. And that's the first problem I had with this jacket. You see, it was a Kais jacket. And if you do your research, you'll find that Kais is pretty much the market leader in this subject. So they sell heated jackets, trousers and gloves and so on. Now, with the Kais jacket, it doesn't come with a heating control. So you plug it into the bike, it gets really, really hot, like really hot. Unbearably so, and the only way to turn it off is to unplug it from the bike. So the first thing that you really need to buy is one of these heated control pads, and that hangs down the bottom of the jacket. It's about the size of a TV remote control, but it's got nice big buttons and you can turn the heat up and down or turn it on and off as you ride along. So the first thing is you've got those hidden costs or extra costs of the other bits and pieces that you need to add onto the jacket. The second problem I had was it didn't really fit me all that well. You see, my mate Martin is a good 6 foot tall, probably taller than that, and powerfully built. I, on the other hand, am not. And so this jacket, even compared with this kind of big winter's jacket I've got on now, hung right down towards my knees and looked an absolute mess. Not only that, but it didn't really fit me particularly well in that it was too big. So I started to get hot spots where it was touching me and other parts where it was actually cold. So you've got to get yourself a jacket that fits. Now the next problem I had with the jacket is the way that it plugs in. So let me just explain. So clearly you're going to need a power source, and actually for a size of a jacket a battery is really not going to cut it because it won't last for long enough. So generally you'll need a power source that comes from the battery on your bike. Now it plugs in obviously to these two terminals here. It comes with two connectors, and then there's a fairly long cable with a fuse on it, and that cable then has to dangle out of the front of your seat. So what you end up with is something that looks a bit like this hanging out the front. Now it needs to be left dangling like that because if you get off the bike and you're still plugged in, and trust me, you will get off the bike at some point and still be plugged in, you need that sort of quick release where it can unplug itself. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't be doing with things like this dangling around in my bike. It just looks shabby and it doesn't look right. So if anybody's managed to do that in a way that doesn't look like that, then please let me know. The last thing I'll mention about these jackets is whether actually you need one or not. You see, I was riding along using it and I found that I only ever had it on the lowest setting, even though it didn't fit me properly and wasn't heating me up correctly. And I got to thinking, do I really need one of these? I mean, after all, when I go out and it's a cold day, I generally wear a t-shirt and then another layer on top of that, and then this jumper, which I'll come on to in a minute, and then a quilt, and then the jacket, and actually, I don't really get cold. And I'm just wondering if this jacket, the idea of a heated jacket, is actually fixing a problem that I don't have. So let me very quickly explain this jumper. A couple of Christmases ago, my mum bought me this and she ordered it from the Daymark catalogue. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Daymark, but they make thermal underwear for people of a certain age. Now, naturally, I saw this jumper and thought, really? And chucked it into the back of my wardrobe. Then I came back into biking and I thought, what I need is a jumper that's uncomplicated around the neck so that I can get my jacket on properly and keeps me warm. And I thought, hey, what about that thermal jumper that I've got from the Daymark catalogue? Well, I haven't looked back and I've worn this pretty much every time when I've been out in the cold ever since. In fact, I've actually been online now and ordered another one because this one's covered in paint and oil. So whilst I was ordering my jumper, I thought, hang on, if I get cold on my bike, I can always wear thermal underwear. So I ordered some of that as well. And it's got the added bonus that if my wife sees me in it, it's going to drive her into a passionate frenzy. Anyway, win-win. So thermal underwear, lots of layers. I don't really need a heated jacket, and I definitely don't need heated trousers because, quite honestly, I've got these RST trousers and I've never put the thermal liners into them. You know, the quilted liners that come with them? I've never used them and I've never had cold legs. So I've come to that conclusion that I don't really need heated gear. Now, a lot of people swear by it and I can't blame them. There's lots of advantages. I think probably one of the great advantages is that when you're wearing it and you're walking around your house, you haven't got all these layers on and you don't get boiling hot. And then when you get on your bike, you can turn it on. So you maintain that constant temperature, whether you're inside or outside or whatever. Whereas with me, with all my layers, I'm in the house, so 10 minutes later, I'm absolutely sweltering. So there's definitely some advantages to it, but for me it just seems like a bit of a waste of time. I don't want cables hanging out of my bike and so on. So in summary then, with the sort of heated gear, what I would say is, first of all, Kais seems to be the market leader. That's the place to start if you're doing your research for which one you want to buy. It sort of sets the standard. The second thing is make sure it fits, and really the only way to do that is to go into a shop. I know it's easy to order it online, but you know, really you want it to be a nice snug fit so that it warms you correctly. The next thing to think about is that if you bought a heated vest, you probably will end up wanting one with arms as well. So just buy a jacket that's got arms on it. Also, bear in mind, a lot of these systems are modular. Certainly the Kais one is. So the jacket will plug into the trousers. It'll also plug into the gloves as well. And then you've only got one connection that goes into the bike. That seems to be the smart way to do it. I mean, that's a lot of plugging together, but I guess if you're going on a long ride in the cold, that would be fantastic. The last thing to bear in mind is the wiring. You've got to wire it up to the battery, and it will dangle out of the front of the seat unless you can find a better way of doing it, and if you can, please let me know. So there we go. That's my conclusion on jackets, but that's not the end of the story. So a few days later, and you can see it's absolutely frosty outside, really cold. And the one thing that I really suffer with is my poor little pinkies. And these are my money makers. So if my hands are cold and I can't use my hands, then I'm no good to anyone. So the trick is for me that I've got to keep my hands nice and warm. So what do I use? Well, the obvious answer is heated grips, is what a lot of people go for. Great if they come with your bike, mine don't. So I'd have to have one of these add-ons. And this is the leading make Oxford. And quite honestly, I don't want that big control panel on my handlebars or any of the wiring that goes with it. Plus, of course, it only really heats your palms. So what you also need is a pair of these handguard protector things, and I'm not putting a set of these anywhere near my bike. The answer then has got to be gloves. And these to start with are my summer gloves. Now, they're fantastic in terms of protection. They've got great palm sliders, they've got knuckle protectors, and these boa fasteners. Now, despite the fact that they are fantastic in the summer, they are absolutely useless in the winter because they've got no warmth whatsoever. So then I've got my winter gloves, and these are leather RST winter gloves. If I'm honest, they're not quite as comfortable as the summer gloves, and they probably don't offer quite as much protection. But purely in terms of warmth, they're good enough for 80 or 90% of what I do. So that's great, but for the other sort of 10-20%, what do I need? It's really got to be a set of heated gloves. And these are my RST heated gloves. So you can see I've got a button on the back. I press and hold, and the power comes on. It's got a red light, which means it's the full heat setting on that one. And if I turn the other one on as well, once it's on, I can cycle through and I can put it onto an amber light, which will give me sort of medium heat, and then the green light, which is the lowest level of heat. So I'm going to keep one on the low level, I'm going to keep one on the high level. I'm going to have a ride off down the road and see how those feel. Just while we pull out of here, I'll mention the fact that some gloves will plug into the jackets or will plug into a wire that you attach to the bike. I've gone for the option where I've got two batteries, one in each glove, and you charge up the batteries, and the charge lasts for around about 3 to 4 hours depending on what sort of heat setting you have it. I found those to be absolutely fine, and I don't mind the idea of actually plugging them in. Some people prefer just to have them so that the power is always going to be there on the bike. And one of the really interesting features on these gloves, which I thought was going to be really corny, but it's actually very good, is the fact that they come with a wiper blade on each of the index fingers. And that wiper blade, it just doesn't look like it'd do much. But when you swipe it across your visor, it does a fantastic job. So that's an added bonus that I wasn't expecting. So the gloves have only been switched on for a few seconds now, and already I can tell that the right hand glove, which is on the lowest setting, is just warm. My hand feels like normal temperature even in this cold. My left hand, however, is just about as hot as Pamela Anderson on a Californian beach back in the 90s. So these gloves, as far as heated gear goes, I think are an absolute game changer. I really do. I cannot rate them highly enough. So if you're in the market for a bit of heated gear, definitely go with the gloves. The one thing I will say, which is the only downside that I can think of, is the fact that because my hands are so lovely and warm now, it's actually making the rest of my body feel cold. So I think I might just be in the market for some more heated gear. Okay, well, thanks for watching everyone. Keep your chains oiled, and I'll see you soon. Jackets will plug in to the trousers as well. Right. And putting your hand in here is an absolute joy. It's toasty warm, and it keeps your hand warm all over. No, I've done this walking wrong, haven't I?